Não, olha pra câmera, não olha pra cara da gente, não. Olha pra Maria lá,
Cinematic workshop discussions about an art form in our day and age with Harry Callahan,
nearly all of them, I would say, straight photography.
Mark Cohen, Ralph Gibson, Joel Meyerowitz, Duane Michals, Lisette Model,
Die Welt ist so groß und so frei und es gibt so vieles.
Stephen Shore, John Sharkovsky, Garry Winogrand, and Robert Frank.
Mein Leben, Paradise in Malibu in Kanada. Die Hölle in New York.
Hell in New York.
Okay. Aber für das Arbeiten, man kann besser in der Hölle arbeiten wie im Paradies, glaube ich. Für mich.
In 1947, Robert Frank left Switzerland for America. The New World challenged him. I want to create an authentic document of our time whose imagery is so strong that any explanation is pointless. A Guggenheim scholarship helped him to make his ideas a reality. For 2 years, he traveled across the United States and photographed Americans. Robert Frank influenced America's contemporary photography like no other. His pictures are personal images of America in the 1950s. They display social correlations captured in fractions of a second through perfect mastery of the 35mm camera. It was the beatnik era. Their protest against bourgeois lifestyles and forms of art is expressed in Frank's pictures, too. His friend, poet and author Jack Kerouac, wrote about his photographs. That crazy feeling in America, when sun is hot on the streets and music comes out of the jukebox or from a nearby funeral. That's what Robert Frank has captured in these tremendous photographs taken as he traveled on the road around 48 states in an old used car and with the agility, mystery, genius, sadness, and strange secrecy of a shadow, photographed scenes that have never been seen before on film. After seeing these pictures, you end up finally not knowing anymore whether a jukebox is sadder than a coffin.
Ich weiß nie, was die Leute machen werden. Ich erwarte immer etwas, das anders ist als das Gewöhnliche. Und dann oft kommt das Gegenteil raus, dass das Gewöhnliche sehr interessant ist. Und das ist vielleicht eine große Eigenschaft der Fotografie oder meiner Fotografie, dass das Gewöhnliche sehr exotisch wirkt oder vor 25 Jahren so gewirkt hat.
The pictures became a book. John Sharkovsky from the Museum of Modern Art.
The Americans was not a popular book. I remember my own first response to the book when I first saw it was partly one of something almost approaching shock or tinged with distrust, because it was very bold and radical and thoroughgoing redefinition of how to use photography. And something that is that original takes a little time to absorb and to understand and to begin to take for granted. By now, I suppose the Americans is another comfortable old classic now. But it wasn't 25 years ago. It was a tough book.
At the time, Robert Frank wrote, "Photography is a lonely journey. It's the only path a creative photographer can take. There are no compromises. Only very few photographers accept that fact." Town Patriarchs in Hoboken, New Jersey. Political Gathering in Chicago. Chinese Cemetery in San Francisco. Jack Kerouac. Anybody doesn't like these pictures don't like poetry, see? Anybody don't like poetry, go home, see television shots of big-hatted cowboys being tolerated by kind horses. Robert Frank, with that little camera that he raises and snaps with one hand, he sucked a sad poem right out of America onto film, taking rank among the tragic poets of the world. And I say, that little old lonely elevator girl looking up, sighing in an elevator full of blurred demons, what's her name and address?
Nein, als ich diese Fotos gemacht habe, die in die Americans publiziert worden sind, ich habe keine, wie sagt man dem, I had no connection, keine Konnektion mit den Leuten. Viele Leute haben es nicht gewusst, dass ich sie aufgenommen habe. Und ich war ja auch nur ein Zuschauer für einige Sekunden. Das hat mich interessiert, das Gesicht der Frau oder was es auch war. Und dann bin ich weggelaufen.
Robert Frank about his pictures. Black and white are the colors of photography. To me, they're a symbol for the alternative of hope versus despair that humanity is always exposed to. Nearly all of my photos show people, seen simply, just like through the eye of the man on the street. Photography must contain one thing, the humane factor of the moment. I've been accused that my standpoint has subjective overtones, but life can't be something indifferent, not to a photographer. The personal opinion often consists of a kind of criticism, although criticism can come from love. It's important to see what's invisible to others, maybe the hope in a glance, maybe the sadness in a glance.
Für mich etwas Gutes zu machen, ob es Fotografie ist oder ein Film. Man sollte ehrlich sein und man sollte wissen, über was man spricht und was man zeigt. Das ist sehr wichtig für mich. Ich will über nichts sprechen, das ich nicht verstehe. Noch viel weniger will ich etwas filmen oder zeigen, das ich nicht wirklich kenne. Ich will nicht nach Vietnam reisen und da eine Reportage machen, denn ich kenne das Land nicht, ich verstehe nichts davon, ich spreche die Sprache nicht. So ist es für mich sehr wichtig, wenn ich etwas jetzt mache. Ich bin 58 Jahre alt, so will ich etwas machen, das ich wirklich kenne. Und ich will etwas machen, das mehr oder weniger eine spontaneous ist. Ja, es ist nun 12 Uhr in New York und das Datum ist, what's the date today? June 14th, 1982. So, wir sitzen hier in der Küche in meinem Haus in New York. So, und ich spreche über subjektive Fotografie. Good luck. Und du willst, dass ich über andere Fotografen spreche. Ich kenne nicht mehr viele Fotografen, aber ich... Über Bill Brandt vielleicht? Well, that's history. Ich spreche nicht gerne über history.
Walker Evans, who shot most of his famous pictures during the 1930s and 40s, influenced Robert Frank due to the socially critical content and his honest, straightforward form of photographic depiction.
Ich ziehe es vor, über einen Freund zu sprechen, der mir seine Fotos gezeigt hat, Jim Goldberg, der Leute fotografiert hat, die in billigen Hotels wohnen. Und er hat diese Leute dann gekannt und hat sie gefragt, hat ihnen die Fotos gezeigt, die er gemacht hat. Und die Leute haben dann unter die Foto geschrieben, was sie von der Foto denken. Das hat mich beeindruckt.
The married couple. George and I have been married 4.5 years. We are an average couple. He is too babyish at times. Sometimes our personalities clash, but most of the time we get along. I feel like I depend on Gloria to take care of me. That makes me very happy.
Ich habe Duane Michals gern. Ich glaube, er hat Ideen. Er versucht, die Fotografie ein wenig weiterzustoßen.
But life happens in the continuity. Life is not a single moment. We experience life as an ongoing event. Things have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like I'm going to take this camera off the tripod. This is the beginning. This is the middle. And that's the end. So there were things I wanted to talk about that I couldn't talk about with one photograph. And there were ideas that I had which I would never find on the street. So I would have to set up the idea. I would have to make it happen myself. This one is called The Spirit Leaves the Body, and it's my idea of what happens when you die. I believe that the important things are not what you see, but what you feel, and anxiety and dreams and death. Not what death looks like, but what the metaphysical ideas of death are more important to me than the facts of death. So this is what, in my mind, this is what I think happens. I think you literally get up and you walk away from the body. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could take pictures and see our energy, if we could see our vibrating energy? And I hate photographs that are too clever when they become a pose, but I like photographs that tell me what it means to be alive. And when it tells me what it means to be alive, then I know I'm in the presence of art. But that doesn't happen very often. Everything that's happened of significance in American photography since he did the book The Americans has been because of Robert Frank. And all of those other photographers, shall I mention names? Well, all these other photographers, I think, are Robert Frank's children. I think that Garry Winogrand and Friedlander and Bruce Stakes, all these people.
But clearly the debt is enormous, and I'm sure Winogrand would be the first one to, not to admit it, but to claim it.
I think the photographers who I feel that I learned the most from, most immediately, who I feel most responsible to, are Walker Evans and Robert Frank.
Like Frank, Winogrand primarily photographs people. On the beach in Santa Monica, on the streets of Hollywood, all over the country. He currently lives in Los Angeles, but it won't be long before he feels driven to head for another town in another state. Winogrand doesn't want to have the multifaceted way he tackles reality pinned down in categories.
I hate the term. I think it's a stupid term, street photography. I don't think it makes any, it tells you anything about a photographer or work, in a way.
Winogrand maintains that the problem in photography doesn't consist of taking a pretty picture. It's to find a way to transform the real world into something completely different, into a distinct image.
You know, on the subject, I mean, I have a book out called The Animals. Call me the same as zoo photographer. I mean, the whole thing don't make any sense to me, you know. You know, your photographer is responsible for two things. Once you put your body where you want it to be, what's in the frame and when you snap the shutter. That's what the photographer does. The camera does the rest. You know, you get what the camera saw in the end. You are responsible for what's in the frame, what's in the edges, and when the shutter is snapped. Okay. I try to frame in terms of what I want to include. I don't think about pictures when I'm photographing. I see life. That's all there is. You know, I mean, in my viewfinder, there's not a picture there. You're not a picture. We know too much about how photographs look, or pictures look, and it's the easiest thing in the world. It's natural to make those pictures we know. It's boring. You don't learn anything that way. You keep making what you know. So I try to deal with things. I've worked out my own way, I guess, to contend with that problem of being programmed about knowing too much about pictures. You see.
Suddenly a scene like a picture by Winogrand.
I love that one. Where are you guys from? Where are you guys from?
All right. Marcus is Savannah from Germany. Let me get in the picture, right?
Oh, no.
Let me get in the picture. Germany.
We're cameramen.
All right.
And one of the most significant photographers of our time sees himself in a situation that has probably annoyed every photo amateur at one time or another.
Photographing often enough, somebody will come up to me and say, "You're getting good pictures," and I don't know. I know that what I photograph is interesting. I haven't seen the pictures yet, you know. But hopefully the picture will be more interesting than what I photograph. I mean, if it isn't that, it doesn't work.
Garry Winogrand shoots photos as if he wanted to absorb reality within himself. For him, photography is like a drug he needs to have daily.
I really get, you know, the way I would put it is I get totally out of myself being there. I mean, it's the closest I come to not existing, I think. Which is the best, which to me is attractive anyway.
Like Garry Winogrand, Lee Friedlander's pictures are sold in art galleries. Friedlander became famous in the 60s with his self-portraits. Bob Friedis, his gallerist.
Well, Lee, it seems to me, follows in the exact tradition of Evans, who influences Frank, who then influences Friedlander and Winogrand. I think that's, for me, is the great tradition in photography, is these private visions of the public world. They're not fantasies. On the other hand, they're very, very personalized, so that taking these four men as a whole, you get a real sense of sweep and history of where the United States as a culture and as a people have been over the last 30, 40, or 50 years. I think what we have in Factory Valleys is just a continuation and a deepening of the issues that Lee has been interested since he started to be a photographer. It's about our environment, it's about the way we live, it's about our cities. We influence the city influences us. It can be read as a denunciation of the capitalist system or the way we work, the assembly line project. My feeling is it's kind of an indictment of how we've allowed our cities and our processes to degrade ourselves and the people who do the working.
This important direction in American photography is being pursued by Thomas Roma as well. Photos of gardens in Brooklyn, New York are shot using his self-built camera. This year he received the coveted Guggenheim Scholarship, just like his idols Friedlander and Winogrand before him. And when Thomas Roma talks about his photography, their influence can be heard too.
I'm never objective. It's always a subjective thing. The way the frame is made holds the meaning of the picture. The space created through the lens on the film is the thing that makes the photograph different from just taking someone by the hand and bringing them to the spot and saying, here, look at it. It's the photograph I'm interested in. This is my subject matter. This is the raw materials for my thought, my feelings. I'll just... It's also not the kind of thing one even hopes that someone else would understand while you're doing it. It's something that's totally self-motivated and something that's totally self-concerned. While the work is going on, the hope is just that someone else understands exactly what you're doing. I think it'll be lost.
This attitude has a tradition in American photography. In the beginning of the 20th century, Alfred Stieglitz fought for a purely photographic pictorial language and used his magazine Camera Work to gain recognition of photography as art. He published photos that stood in stark contrast to the salon photography back then. For instance, Steichen's portraits and landscapes taken in 1906. Stieglitz found a term for this new direction in style: straight photography.
What does it mean? It doesn't simply mean sharp. It doesn't simply mean unmanipulated. It doesn't simply mean... I think what Stieglitz really meant when he talked about straight photography was an attempt to deal both with the world and with the medium of photography.
Stieglitz was also active on behalf of European modern painting. He presented Matisse and Picasso to the American public in 1912. The museums rejected the paintings, and straight photography too. Yet Stieglitz did achieve his goal. Modern painting made its way into the museums, and with it, photography. With photographs by Paul Strand from 1912, he proved the individuality of this new art medium once again in the last issue of Camera Work. Even universities opened themselves up to photography, many during the 1940s due to the influence of Maholy-Nagy and the new Bauhaus, where Harry Callahan trained several generations of photography teachers. They learned that photography is intellectually and artistically just as important as other fine arts. Harry Callahan.
Well, I think a lot of my photography has got something to do with me wanting to try different things. And so I would walk in the streets in Chicago and now here, and I would see the different kind of light, and I would like to photograph people against dark background. I've found that I wanted to photograph people walking and lost in thought, and then I've wanted to photograph people with my camera down low and distort them. I think that it's always been a case I want to try something a little different. Not that I'm trying to be tricky or something, but I get tired of photographing one way for a long time. And I think this is fundamental in all of my photography, that I photographed, let's say, the landscape when I first started. And then I got tired of photographing the landscape, but I didn't want to stop photographing. I didn't want to wait until it was winter or summer or something like that. So I started photographing in the city, and then when I got tired of that, then I'd go back to the landscape, or I'd go photograph my wife. So I think this has been important because photography meant so much to me. It wasn't a case to wait until the sun was right.
Yeah.
Weed, 1954.
People had said that I was very concerned with line, so I thought, well, maybe I should really make an issue of it, and so I bought some black thread and some white cardboard, and I moved the thread around and photographed it, and it wasn't important to me at all. The pictures weren't when I was through. So I just felt that I'm interested in something more than just line. If I was showing a picture to somebody and I know that they didn't know exactly what it was, I would tell them what it was, because that's somehow or another important to me. For me, the subject is important. When I want to do the landscapes, I feel that it's important for me to feel good when I'm in the woods or along the beach or whatever it is. And if I don't, then hardly anything's going to happen. And the kind of photography I like is the kind that it's not, say, academic in the way that everybody goes, is a kind where somebody unconsciously finds out their way by photographing. And you can't find it out by just thinking, I don't think. And I would say, I guess I had to do it more than anything else. And I think I produced a tremendous amount of photographs in the time, that I worked at it, just because I was driven so hard to do it. I don't take any credit because I liked it.
In 1938, Lisette Model emigrated from Austria to New York. She photographs people.
Wenn man einen fortwährend fragt, ob man auch wirklich jetzt noch fotografiert, als ob man schon tot wäre, dann ist meine Antwort immer, well, das ist all right, maybe. Vielleicht ist das nicht so schlecht, aber ich hoffe, ich werde fortsetzen, solange ich lebe.
She gave key impulses to contemporary photography, and not only with her pictures. As a teacher, she discovered and encouraged many young, talented people. Lisette Model speaking to students in Essen, Germany.
Ich werde natürlich sagen, was ich denke.
Ja, sollte.
Diese Fotos sind zu konventionell. Wenn ich mit meiner Kamera rausgehe, dass ich keine Ahnung habe oder nicht so much weiß, was kommen wird, was ich sehe, was mich beeindrucken wird, und ich lasse mich weit offen, to receive things I have not seen before.
Was heißt das?
Die Dinge zu sehen, die man gestern nicht gesehen hat, und sie nicht in ein Prinzip zu stellen. Das war eine Mode. Jeder hat, what do you photograph? People, 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 people. Aber die haben nicht People fotografiert. Die haben die Menschen nicht fotografiert. Die haben die Menschen gesehen und dann sofort fotografiert, was sie auf anderen Fotos über Menschen, sie haben die Fotos imitiert, die Menschen fotografiert haben, aber sie haben die Menschen nicht direkt gesehen. Das ist was. So haben sehr wenige Menschen fotografiert. Wissen Sie, wenn man einen Betrunkenen auf der Straße sieht und fotografiert, da hat man ein schlechtes Gewissen. Oder die Leute, die Fotografen oder die Studenten sagen dann, Ich will nicht in seine Privacy mich hineinmischen. Und da habe ich das Gefühl, solange man das Gefühl hat, dass der betrunken ist, aber nicht ich, und dass das ohne ihn passieren kann, aber nicht mir, da ist man in Schwierigkeiten. Dass ein Fotograf oder ein Arzt oder was immer das Gefühl haben muss, dass er selber alles ist, das existiert. Eine Hure, ein Schwein, ein großer Mann ist. Und nicht sich abstellen kann und sagen kann, ja, das passiert ja nur dem. Wenn er das fühlt, kann er ihn nicht fotografieren. Aber wenn er sich verbunden fühlt und sagen kann, das kann mir morgen passieren, und das passiert morgen, im Krieg und das und das, dann ist er frei. Ist das ein bisschen klar? Das ist der Weg, ich fühle.
Soho, a neighborhood for artists in New York, is where Ralph Gibson lives. For years, he took pictures of people and street scenes in the tradition set by Robert Frank until he found a style of his own. He shot most of his well-known pictures in his direct surroundings, which he roams daily on the lookout for new motifs.
Well, one of the things is that I try to allow myself to do anything I want in the work. It's important that I be open to ideas and try not to say, no, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. Every time I've walked past a photograph, I've regretted it. We've got to shoot everything. I must say that what I'm really concerned with is simplifying my technique. I put the sun over my right shoulder, just like it says with that little piece of paper when you buy the film. And I have almost eliminated technique from my work. I like to work with one lens for 4 or 5 years at a time. I really like to get to know how a lens works. Photography is in the eye, it's really not in the camera. Ultimately, they are in fact documentary photographs, even though they're very surrealistic by intention. It had to have happened. Photography forces you to accept reality. There's no getting away from that. If I wasn't so intrigued with reality, I'd be a painter. I should be able to make a photograph of anything. If you do it, if you really see what you're looking at, you should be able to do just about anything. Sometimes the least significant idea, as long as you're pushing film in the camera, the possibility of something happening is there. So I'm not going to wait until something great happens on the street. I want to just take a picture of this right here, this corner, anything. Originally, I thought it was like a woman's lower thighs and stomach. But now I thought of Brancusi. It was going to be like a homage to Brancusi. Yeah. But now it's more about this, architecture and constructivism and the geometry that's such an important part of my work. This was the photograph that changed. That's the one that I made first. I was a documentary photographer until one day I made this picture. Now, it does have some of the geometry that I talk about. During this period, we have to remember that Robert Frank's book, The Americans, was really starting to gather a tremendous amount of attention. And it seemed that the photographers of my generation felt that you had to make a book. In order to become an important photographer, if you were really ambitious and serious about photography, you had to make a book. I had this picture in New York, this picture in New Mexico. But it does make a kind of mise en page that builds additional content. Now, individually, I am still interested in both these pictures. But in music, there's an expression called overtones. If you hit a C chord on the guitar, bon, don, don, those three notes vibrating produce additional overtones which you cannot reach directly. Some of them are more successful than others, and some of them are more obvious than others, you know. But any reason will do as long as I can get a result, you know, produce a feeling. In this case, I thought that this guy was in water, this guy was in steam. Different atmospheres would produce a different kind of a feeling. One of the things I learned from Robert Frank was that it's very important to be unique, individual, original, little words like that, which is really the reason that I'm so involved with photography, is because it is an opportunity for me to be a little different, just to be me.
Ralph Gibson became world famous with his trilogy and influenced modern photography in Europe as well. But the independence from commercial commissions creates new pressures on up-and-coming artists too, because the carousel called the art business takes its toll. Stylistic directions are pursued further because they offer opportunities on the market. Honesty is sacrificed in favor of sellability.
Du findest das nicht gut mit den Galerien und der Kunst?
Nein, das drückt das Niveau der Fotografie herunter. Denn man versucht nur, Fotografien zu produzieren, die verkauft werden können. Oder viele Fotografen werden so dahin reingeseucht, das zu machen. Es ist wie ein Staubsauger, der, you know, to make money.
A few hours' drive from the New York art market, Mark Cohen lives in Wilkes-Barre, a small town in the hills of Pennsylvania. He discovered using the flash for contemporary photography.
You know, watch the different things that happen. Bring the camera up very close. And, you know, I could try to make a picture of his neck. You want to watch it because it's right over here. You know? You're going to make a picture of your neck, you know? Like that. You know, just like this gold chain, like this gold chain by his neck. You know? Maybe his eyes, the way a hair's blown in his eyes. Make a picture like that. But this is very unusual because it's like, you know, we're cooperating in the middle of a very strange sort of thing to happen, right? You're not kidding. You're not kidding.
Mark Cohen runs a photo studio in his hometown. He photographs weddings and shoots portraits. But once a day, he breaks out and flashes to his heart's content.
I'm going to do the girl against the wall there.
Well, there's this definite social interaction that happens, some kind of thing that happens between me and the people I take a picture of. I invade their space and try to make something happen with the camera when I go in very close and try to make pictures with you know, with the flash and the small camera and go very close to someone. You really do trespass in a way on their space. And also the kinds of subjects that I pick out. Many times they're, you know, details of people or small parts of them. A lot of times they're very sexually related, and sometimes they're related to children that are in disadvantaged circumstances. Sometimes they're related to old people. Certain themes run through the work all the time, and it does become some kind of social, psychological document about my vision, about what I look at and how I respond to people in the environment. I would never use a flash. I always wanted to just take pictures straight with like a 50mm lens and just make straight literal photographs of things. But when I started to use a flash, because of the effective speed of the flash, the thousandth of a second that the flash goes off, I found that I could come in very close, and with a 28mm lens or a 21mm lens, I'd have a pretty long depth of field, maybe 2 feet or 3 feet depth of field, and then I could see someone just walking straight by the street or running down the street and put the camera right next to them and take a picture at a thousandth of a second.
So we're trying to make some pictures of the people like coming out of the office. Like 5 o'clock, like there'll be a lot of people around.
4:45.
Yeah.
This is a picture I took near Wilkes-Barre, in a small town near Wilkes-Barre. And I was just driving around looking for a place to stop, looking for a place to take pictures, and I saw this young girl.
At this girl's legs, you know, like the nice, her legs.
Sort of followed her down the street for a few steps and then crouched down and made a picture because I was interested in her sock and her leg in the picture. And there are many, many things in the picture that I didn't see and couldn't imagine at the time I took the picture, like the shadow and the way the knee would point to this edge, and this beautiful edge, this broken edge that happens, and this other shadow that comes out. And the way this knee points to this shadow. And then this mysterious sort of space that happens in this dark area here.
Look at that. Look what's going on. Everybody's curious. I mean, basically, I'm photographing my own curiosity. What I'm curious about is what I take pictures of. And I don't know what I'm curious about until I get a photograph. It teaches me. I think you can only learn by standing out here on the street and experiencing it. Because what you find out is that you've got feelings about things. You're not sure where those feelings come from. The street tells you every day. Here it is.
New Yorker Joel Meyerowitz photographing Fifth Avenue.
100% cotton, American-made New York City T-shirts.
He works in the tradition set by his idols, Frank and Winogrand.
I photograph in color on the street because it describes so much more than black and white. It's a much more exciting description of what we see. And it's a half step closer to reality, too. It makes it tougher. It's not just a photographic rendition as we used to, an abstraction. It's much more confusing and maybe even convincing to see what life looks like in color. Kind of compressed life. When I say that, I mean that a picture that you can enter into anywhere in the frame. You're not necessarily forced to start with the incident, but that you could come here and just see the way a hand looks leaning on a telephone booth door, the way the sky looks. You could move anywhere you want in any fashion without it being programmed by a single event that calls your attention. I'm saying I'm going to invest 20 years of my life in trying to photograph this place, which is exploding every day. It's changing every day. That's what I'm giving my life to, and I'm hoping that in 20 years, by the turn of the century, there's a body of work that says this is how it feels to be alive in New York City. Because this is one of the phenomenons of our time. It's everything that's good and everything that's bad is right here. Its power and its craziness and its beauty and its people. One of the things I I feel strongly about using the view camera is that it brings you the original voice of the medium. It's the way it began, with wet plates and glass plates, large, awkward cameras. It made a photographer really consider everything that he photographed. There was no casual, instantaneous reaction. When you saw something, it had to mean a lot to you for you to put that equipment down and take a photograph of it. I went to Cape Cod because it's a family place. I wanted to go someplace where I could be away from New York City, where I wouldn't have to think about what I was missing on the streets. And the Cape gave me the chance to see simple things, ordinary American things, the landscape, the light, the bay and the sky. And slowly, over a period of 2 months, I photographed these things that were interesting to me. One of the things I learned on the street was to trust life and to keep hands off of it. And that same feeling continues in the rest of the work I do, the landscape or portraits or any interest that I have. Things are good enough as they are. There's no reason to tamper with them. You have to have it come through you and out of you. In a sense, you are the medium, more so than the film is. Because all those experiences have to pass through you first to land on that film and to make their way out to the world in a clear, concise statement. This is what I saw. And if you can do that clearly, you can efface yourself. You can just step aside and let someone see the picture and experience the work as if they were standing in your shoes. And standing in your shoes is what, for me, that's what photography is, that's what it's about.
Montana in the western USA is where Stephen Shore calls home. He too discovered large format technology for himself and uses it to capture country scenes of America. He used to shoot just about everything.
All kinds of things. The food I ate, the rooms I stayed in, buildings I saw, streets that were interesting. I did this with 35 millimeter. Then I got myself a view camera, and that eliminated some of the subjects I was photographing. And I started to concentrate most on streets and architecture.
Stephen Shore makes references to Walker Evans in his work and to photographers from the turn of the century. Shore goes back almost 100 years to move ahead, but he still seems to feel that his idol, Eugene Atget, went further.
When I look at his pictures, I don't see any artifice of what he's doing. I see through the picture. And mine do that somewhat, but there's more sense of my formal approach in the picture. Although I find that's changing. Mine are becoming more and more transparent.
Old photographic truths are hidden in the new color photos by Stephen Shore. Once again, time is being captured in a kind of photographic ancient language. A certain "that's how it is" dominates the pictures. The design is barely perceivable. The objects speak directly to the viewer. The photographer takes a back seat to them. just like at the beginning of this century when photography gained its self-confidence and photographers demanded to be at one with the world and the medium of photography.